Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha. In the last class, we saw the meaning of the first sutram, Athato Brahma Jignyasa. There were three words in this sutram, Atha, Ataha, and Brahma Jignyasa. Atha means afterwards. After what? After doing karma vicharam. Ataha means because of that. Because of what? Because of the fact that the benefits, the phalam of karmas is alpam and asthiram. They are very trivial and they are temporary. They are not permanent. Because of that fact and the fact that there is an initial impression, a apata pratiti, that there is something called Brahmam, infinite source, that is being spoken about in Upanishads. Because of these two combined reasons. What are the combined reasons? One is the fact that after doing karma vichara, we find the benefit of karmas to be alpam and asthiram. That is one factor. The other factor being that there is an initial impression that has been formed in the person doing Veda Adhikaranam that there is something called as Brahmam that is being spoken about in Upanishads. Because of these two reasons, what he does is Brahma Jignyasa. He goes and does a vicharam about that Brahmam that is being spoken about in Upanishads. So this was the meaning of the first sutra, Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignyasa. Now, previously we saw that each sutram is supposed to have, each Adhikaranam is supposed to have a Purvapaksham and a Siddhantam. Purvapaksham is the initial perception that you would get, and Siddhantam is the definitive knowledge we would gain after doing extremely good analysis. So every Adhikaranam is going to have Purvapaksham and then Siddhantam. We are now seeing about the first Adhikaranam, Jignyasa Adhikaranam. And this has only one sutram, Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignyasa. Now what Embiramanar does here is, Vedavyasa, he would have some Purvapaksham in his mind. And because of that, he has created this sutra. He has written this sutra, the first sutra, Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignyasa. He says that Brahma Jignyasa is to be performed. Now, why does Vedavyasa have to say this? If performing Brahma Jignyasa is going to be an obligation for everyone or is going to be done by everyone, why does Vedavyasa then have to do a sthapanam of this? Why does he have to, as if he is going to prove a point, why does he have to say that Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignyasa? Then we can get something in our mind that there was an objection raised as to whether Brahma Jignyasa can be performed or not. So that's why Vedavyasa is giving a rejoinder, giving a reply that Brahma Jignyasa can be performed. And that is what the sutra tells, Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jignyasa. Now, what was the objection that was raised such that Brahma Jignyasa was to be interrupted, that it could not be performed? Well, that objection was raised by Prabhakara. This is a separate school of philosophy, Prabhakara philosophy. So what they are saying is, Vedavyasa is going to do Brahma Vichara, but these Prabhakaras are objecting that there is no need to do Brahma Vichara. Why? Why does Vedavyasa say that Brahma Vichara needs to be done? He gave two reasons for it. Ataha. What were the two reasons he gave? He said that the benefits of karmas are alpam and asthiram. So after finding that the benefits of karma are alpam and asthiram, what this student who has done Veda Adhyanam, what he will do is, he will then remember about the fact that there is something called as Brahmam, infinite being spoken about. I want to attain that infinite bliss. For that, I am going to do that vicharam about that infinite source that has been talked about, that is Brahmam. So this is the sequence that Vedavyasa had in his mind. Now there is an objection being raised by Prabhakaran. He says that there is no way that this student who is doing Veda Adhyanam, there is no way for him to have an initial perception about that infinite source called as Brahman. After studying Upanishads, there is no way that he is going to gain an initial perception about Brahman. Why? Why Prabhakara says this is, he says that there are two kinds of padarthas. There are two kinds of padarthas. It is Karya padartha and siddha padartha. Two kinds of tattvas. Padarthas can be thought of as tattvas. So two kinds of entities. One is the siddha padartha, which is existing entity, something that is already existing. So that is siddha padartha. Another one is karya padartha. This is an entity. It is an action that is to be performed. Action is also an entity. So you have the siddha padartha, the existing realities, and then you have karya padartha. These are the actions that have to be performed. These are the two kinds of padarthas, two kinds of entities. Now, Upanishads, they will not talk about siddha padartha. Brahmam is an existing reality. It is not something that is to be performed. It is not an action like Jyotishtoma Yaga or some Yajna. So those are Karya Padarthas. Upanishad will not talk about Brahmam, which is a Siddha Padartham. All Vedas are going to talk about only Karya Padarthams, Yagas and Yajnas. Why does Prabhakaran say this? What he says is, leave alone Vedas or Upanishads. Shabdam in general, speech in general, is going to convey only Karya Padarthas. Speech is going to convey only actions that need to be performed. In other words, speech is going to be a command only. There is not going to be a speech that is going to say that there is a pot in front of you. This is not a command. This is not a command. So this kind of a sentence, this kind of a speech is going to convey nothing, is what Prabhakaran says. If you say that use the pot to fetch water, this is a command. This sort of a speech is going to communicate something. So this is what is Prabhakara's philosophy. So what he says is, all speech is going to be commands only. All speech is going to convey Karya Padarthas, some action that is going to be performed. It's going to convey only Karya Padarthas. Speech will never convey Siddha Padartha, is what Prabhakara's Paksham is. So, since Vedas, Upanishads, these are also sentences, speech. So, these Vedas and Upanishads, they too cannot convey any Siddha Padartha. Brahmam is a Siddha Padartha. So, Brahmam is not going to be conveyed by Vedas and Upanishads. Vedas and Upanishads, all these are going to convey only about Karya Padarthas, something that needs to be done, like Yagas and Dhanams and Homams, is what Prabhakaran is saying. There is an additional point that is to be known here. What Prabhakaran says is, let's say there is a speech like, there is water in front of you. So, will this sentence have no meaning? It will have meaning. What Prabhakaran says is, this sentence will have no meaning if this sentence is seen in isolation. If you have only this sentence, a single sentence, like there is water in front of you, this sentence is not going to convey us any meaning. But when this sentence is associated with another sentence, command like sentence, like go and fetch that water, then this sentence in relation with the command sentence, that will give us certain knowledge, is what Prabhakaran is saying. So any sentence, speech that is going to convey a Siddha Padartham, when seen in isolation, it's going to have no meaning. Only when it is related with some other command, some other sentence that is conveying Karya Padartham, only then will this Siddha Padartha sentence make sense, is what Prabhakara says. In Vedas context, how we have got to understand is, the Vedas are going to talk about yagas, homas and yajnas, something that needs to be done, something that is to be refrained from, like not eating garlic and other stuff. So these are actions, these are actionable items, Karya Padarthas. Vedas talk about these, Karma Kanda talks about these, and then after studying these Karma Kanda sentences, we are going to get knowledge that something needs to be done and something needs to be refrained from, it should not be done. So we will get the knowledge from studying this Karma Kanda. Then how does Upanishads, how does Brahma Kanda come into use is, it is not going to be useful when seen in isolation. It's not going to convey any meaning. But when it is joined with these Karma Kanda sentences, when it is seen in relation with these Karma Kanda sentences, then it is going to be giving some ancillary meaning. What is the kind of ancillary meaning that these Upanishad sentences are going to give is, these yagas and homas, these yajnas, what are they going to give? What are the benefits of doing these yagas and yajnas? Let's say Swargam. Swargam is a phalam that is going to be obtained by doing these yagas and yajnas. Who is going to go to Swargam? This body is a perishable entity. So it's going to be burnt or cremated in this world itself. Then who is going to go to Swargam? So there is some entity that is different from this body. That is what is going to Swargam. And that entity is Atma. And that Atma is being spoken about in Upanishads. And this is how the Upanishad sentences that are going to convey about Atma, they find some meaning only when they are held in relation with the sentences present in Karma Kanda. So this is what Prabhakara says. So these Upanishad sentences, when seen in isolation, they are going to have no meaning. So what Vedavyasa said, Ataha, using that word, what did he convey? He said that since there is some apata pratiti, that there is something called as Brahmam that is spoken about in Upanishads, he goes on to do Brahmavichara. The student goes on to do Brahmavichara. This sequence is wrong, is what Prabhakara is saying. Why is this sequence wrong? Why is his reasoning wrong? What he says is, there is no way that this student, after studying these Upanishads, is going to build a perspective about Brahmam, an initial perspective about Brahmam. No, he's not going to get any initial perspective. Why? Because the Upanishad sentences, when seen in isolation, they are not going to convey any siddha padartham. Brahmam is a siddha padartham, it's an existing reality. So it's not going to convey that siddha padartham. So these Upanishads, only when seen in relation with Karma Kanda, are going to make any sense. And what is the sense that they will make? They will just say that there is some soul entity that is different from the body, and that soul is going to Swargam. This is all that Upanishad has to say. It's not going to convey anything about that mystic Brahman, is what Prabhakaran says. So there is no need to do Brahma Vicharam. And in this premise, what Prabhakaran has to, what he has to do to support this premise is, he has to now convey that all speech is going to be command-like only. Speech is going to convey only Karya padarthas. So this is what is basing his premise on. How does he do a sthapanam of it? How does he say that all speech is going to be command-like only? All speech is going to convey only siddha only Karya padarthas. How does Prabhakaran do a sthapanam of this paksham? We will see in the next video. I hope this video was understandable. Sri Bhashyam is extremely interesting, but at the same time, it's a bit difficult. So the extreme nuances of Sri Bhashyam may not be able to be conveyed through just this monologue. So if you want to learn more, get your doubts cleared, it's imperative for you to have any sort of interaction. Personal interactions are at most advisable. At least there could be virtual interactions so that the Sri Bhashyam nuances could be understood in a better manner. If you want to get a clearer idea of Sri Bhashya concepts, you can check this video description. It has information on how to join Ramanuja Vidya classes. So anyone interested to learn Sri Bhashya more deeply, please do join those classes. And in the next class, we will see how Prabhakaran establishes that all speech is going to convey only Karya padarthas. Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha.